You can probably already tell it's not as windy today, but high wind and fire weather warnings are still in effect. Thanks so much for joining us here at noon. I'm Steve Stager. The warnings continue until tomorrow when Excel has warned of a power shutoff, a possible one. Boulder County was hit pretty hard with wind and brownout conditions yesterday. Here's a live look at the flags on Pearl Street right now. Moving a little bit, but probably not nearly as much as they were going yesterday. Fort Collins got hit pretty hard yesterday as well. Some trees and big branches around the CSU campus even got knocked down. The campus closed early yesterday and remained closed today for assessment and cleanup. Plenty of people have noticed the extra haze and smokiness in the air, especially north of Denver. That is smoke from a large wildfire burning in Nebraska. This is what it looked like in Fort Collins a little before 9 o'clock this morning. Flags outside our station at Spear and Logan, they have been flapping today, but not as much as they were yesterday. Let's get to the forecast with meteorologist Chris Bianchi. And, you know, Chris, this has been a wild span of weather, and you're talking about even more wild weather for next week.
Oh boy. I mean, see, we got, you named the weather, we are going to have it in the next week. We've got the wind, the high fire danger today and tomorrow. Then we get a sharp cold front and some snow likely by Sunday morning. And then we're going to be talking about historic March heat for the end of next week. Around this time next week, we're going to be flirting with 90 degrees. So we've got the full gauntlet of Colorado weather ahead. There's some of that dust. This is courtesy of our Viera wireless cameras out here on the Eastern Plains, and look at Burlington, still looking a little dusty. High wind, looks like they just canceled the high wind warning. That was just in effect, that just expired at noon. Northeast Colorado high wind watch for tomorrow, and we're going to see those winds really rev back up again for tomorrow, and high fire danger today, even though here's the way I would characterize it. Today's kind of an in-between day for the wind. Yesterday we had really nasty wind, as we were just talking about. Tomorrow's going to be pretty rough go with the wind as well. Today, still blustery, but not as bad as what we're looking at for tomorrow, as bad as what we saw yesterday. But still, high fire danger. Please be smart with anything with a spark outdoors on a day like today. We're still looking at some gusty winds for us here in the foothills. Again, we're not done with the wind, and we're not, it's not a quiet wind day by any stretch of the imagination. It's just less windy than it was yesterday and less windy than it'll be tomorrow. So winds mostly in the foothills over the next few hours. Then watch as we get into tomorrow morning. This is 8 a.m. tomorrow, by the way. Around this St. Patrick's Day parade in downtown Denver, that wind picks up tomorrow. And then we get a sharp cold front tomorrow night. That'll bring us some snow by Sunday morning. And then we get that historic heat by the end of next week. I'll tell you all about that in my full forecast.
All right, Chris, thank you. 6 crew members on a U.S. military refueling plane have died in a crash in western Iraq. U.S. Central Command says it was not caused by hostile or friendly fire, but they don't know what happened. That's the 4th U.S. aircraft lost during this military campaign against Iran. Now this happened as Russia continues to fire at Gulf nations targeting oil facilities along with U.S. and allied bases and city centers. NBC's Richard Engel has more of those details.
An Iranian drone nearly hitting the world's tallest building in Dubai. Iran is also increasingly focused on attacking ships in and around the Strait of Hormuz. This one burning uncontrollably off Iraq as the attackers filmed and cheered in Farsi that they're from Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The Trump administration saying the U.S. may have to escort tankers, which ties up U.S. military resources and is extraordinarily expensive.
That was always in our planning.
So far, one person is benefiting from this war, Vladimir Putin. President Trump temporarily lifted sanctions on Russian oil imposed to punish Putin for his invasion of Ukraine. And some Chinese ships continue to pass through the Strait of Hormuz without threat. As U.S. and Israeli jets attack Iran around the clock, President Trump posting, "We have unparalleled firepower, unlimited ammunition, and plenty of time. Watch what happens to these deranged scumbags today." As thousands rallied in Tehran, responding to a call from Iran's new supreme leader, who has yet to be seen or heard from directly, and who one Iranian diplomat has said was injured.
That was Richard Engel reporting. The president of Cuba says his government has held recent talks with the U.S. They come just a few days after President Trump said Cuba is in deep trouble and that the U.S. may or may not be part of a friendly takeover there. The Cuban president added that the talks were aimed at finding solutions to differences between the two nations, including the lack of fuel shipments to his country over the last 3 months. He says it's because of the U.S. blocking fuel shipments after the January raid in Venezuela. In an hour, the man indicted on charges related to the death of a transgender woman in Lakewood will appear before a judge for the first time. The indictment says that Brandon Muma left Jack Scratone alone, asleep and under the influence of drugs inside an office building on Colfax last April. Her body was not found until weeks later in a small space between two buildings. The indictment says Scratone and Muma were in a relationship, but that he moved her body, her phone, and other personal things to hide evidence. The first court appearance is at 1 o'clock. A threat at Adams City High School didn't just terrify students, staff, and families. It also tied up valuable resources in that community. Commerce City Police arrested 2 teenagers who they accuse of calling in a fake bomb and active shooter threat on Wednesday. The threat even included a fake trail of blood inside the school. More than 200 officers from agencies around the Denver metro area helped clear that campus. Commerce City Police say there were about 24 other calls that came in while they were at the school.
Response time is certainly going to be slowed when we have all of our resources poured into one location and one call.
Police say 2 students they arrested now face felony charges. There have been a lot of questions about the use of ICE's temporary holding facilities, including from Democrats in Colorado. A recent report from the Colorado Times-Recorder showed that ICE held people for weeks in the agency's sub-offices in the state. Documents obtained by the newspaper also say that ICE's policy is to not hold people for more than 72 hours at those sites.
One of the most concerning things we found was that there is this culture seemingly around these facilities of complete disregard for ICE's own internal rules.
Colorado's Democratic congressional delegation is demanding more transparency from ICE following these reports. ICE responded by saying the locations are not secret holding rooms, calling them part of their field offices. On Wednesday, Congressman Joe Neguse of Colorado went to Glenwood Springs, to a building that's been publicly reported to be one of 9 secret ICE facilities in Colorado. The Democrat says the facilities are holding ICE detainees, and as a congressman, he wanted to check inside, which is allowed by federal law, but he reports that no agency personnel presented themselves or responded via phone.